Hey guys, it's Nicole coming to you from Osaka and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I've been asked about since I moved to Osaka, and that is how does living in Osaka compare to living in Tokyo? And I lived in Tokyo for 2 years and 2 months, and now I've been in Osaka for 10 months. So I wanted to be in Osaka for a bit before making the video, and I also went back to Tokyo recently just for a few days to see some friends, and that was also kind of eye-opening to see Tokyo again from a Kansai perspective. So today I feel like I can finally talk about 10 ways that living in Osaka compares to living in Tokyo. So yeah, let's get started on that one. I will be leaving soon to meet a friend, so I think I'll talk about a couple things while I'm sitting here since I took the time to set up this wonderful display, and I'll film the rest on the go. And so, first off, the most obvious difference between Osaka and Tokyo would be the language. So people in Tokyo use Hyojungo, which is like standard language, standard Japanese, and people in Osaka will use Kansai Ben, or more specifically Osaka Ben. And the way that you conjugate verbs can be totally different, and sometimes even the words themselves are totally different. But I don't want to get too much into that now because that would be like a whole separate video, and I would really love for my boyfriend to film it with me, even if he has to wear a mask or something, or I have to put a sticker over his face, because he's the one who's from Osaka, so he knows best. So hopefully we can do that soon. But just an example. So if you're like calling somebody like stupid or foolish, like not always in a mean way, but people in Tokyo, they will say baka, but people in Kansai don't really say that at all. They would either say aho or boke. And my boyfriend is kind of a hothead anyway, so like when he's driving, he's always like boke, like for everybody. So yeah, that's just one example of how the words can be completely different. And I guess I'll leave it at that. But I will say though that I like the Osaka dialect a lot. It can be very confusing sometimes because people also speak very fast, but I feel like I've been bumped up a level with Japanese because I understand a lot. Obviously not everything, but I understand a lot of Kansai Ben. And for the few months that I was in language school, the teachers didn't want us using Kansai Ben in the classroom, but if we had free time, sometimes they would teach us some Kansai Ben, and I felt kind of cool because it was things that I already know from my boyfriend and his family, and then the other kids in the class were like, wow, revelation, Kansai Ben. So yeah, I really like it. And of course, if I'm in another area of Japan using Kansai Ben, people might be like, sugoi. Another pretty obvious difference between Tokyo and Osaka is people's attitudes. So in Tokyo, people are so busy with work, and a lot of times it just feels like people have this wall up, and it's really hard to get to know people and try to like have them let their guard down. But in Kansai, people seem generally more laid back. Of course, there are also uptight people here, and in Tokyo there are definitely laid back, like chill people there too. But generally, people don't seem to be as stoic in Kansai, and I think that's probably why Kansai has a reputation of having funny people. And I think with the Japanese friends that I've made in Osaka and in Tokyo, I've been able to have more serious conversations with the ones in Osaka more quickly, so we can talk about more sensitive topics faster. And people also stop using keigo more quickly. So yeah, they kind of let their guard down faster. And since I've had some experience teaching adults at an eikaiwa, there was one student I had. He was from Osaka, and within a couple lessons he was talking about his divorce. And then there's another student I had who was a transfer from one of the Tokyo schools, and there was a note on her record sheet that was like, don't ask about her family, don't ask any personal questions. Like, okay. And yeah, there's another student that I had from Kansai, and she told me that she worked in Tokyo briefly, and when she was there, everybody would be like, oh, you're from Kansai, tell us a joke. I think people in Osaka might ask you some more personal questions more quickly too. It could happen. So one of my coworkers now, she's Japanese, like the very first time I met her, she was asking me why I moved to Osaka, and I said, oh, because of my boyfriend. And then she was like, can I see a picture of him? Okay, sure. And somebody else had told me that it's really common for people in Osaka to ask about your rent, like how much you pay in rent, like pretty soon after meeting them. Oh, what's your name? Where are you from? How much is your rent? So, but I don't know if that's true because nobody has asked me that personally. But that's what one of my students told me. And another thing about people letting their guards down more quickly is that they might get into arguments more quickly than people in Tokyo. I think the image that most people have of Japanese people is that they're so polite, they're so patient, but I witnessed a fight on the train, not like a physical fight, but these two guys were arguing during rush hour because the one guy, like, his bag was touching the other dude, and he was like, yo, like, move your bag, you should get away from me. And he was like, bro, like, it's rush hour, where do you want me to go? So they were like going back and forth, and I thought they were gonna throw fists, but they didn't. So I'm out in Kyoto now, about to meet my friend. But I would say number 3, trash cans are a lot more accessible in Osaka than in Tokyo. Like, even on the train platform, you can find trash cans sometimes, whereas in Tokyo, there's like none. They're almost non-existent. So you have to carry your trash around with you until you find a convenience store or something. And the trash cans in Osaka, they are covered up during times when a lot of tourists will be around, like some summit, or during the Rugby World Cup too. All the trash cans were covered because I guess, I don't know, they don't trust foreigners to throw away things properly. And then also, so number 4, which is kind of interesting as I'm wearing a mask right now, but I think in general in Osaka, aside from the coronavirus situation, people wear masks a lot less often compared to Tokyo. Like, when you get on the train in Tokyo at rush hour especially, I feel like at least half the people are wearing masks, and then in Osaka I almost felt like self-conscious wearing a mask because not many people were doing it. But of course now, with the situation that's going on, almost everybody is wearing a mask, for at least the people who could get them before they were all sold out. So I'm back home again because my time with my friend was really limited, and I didn't want to be like, hey, excuse me for 30 minutes while I finish filming this video. Yeah, I had to run home to get a package, so here I am. And I changed my background slightly. But going back to people's attitudes, I would say that people in Osaka are much less patient than people in Tokyo, in the sense that, like, people in Tokyo will line up for everything. When the bubble tea craze started, there was a gongcha that opened in Shinjuku, and people were waiting for 3 or 4 hours for a bubble tea. I don't think that would happen in Osaka. So yeah, people really don't want to wait in lines, and driving seems a little bit more aggressive. I hear a lot more honking of horns than I did in Tokyo. It's not quite on the level of New York City, but yeah, people seem a little less patient about driving too, and people also talk faster. And I also think that there are less tourists in Osaka compared to Tokyo. I guess that's kind of obvious too. I mean, Kyoto has a lot of tourists, but yeah, Osaka doesn't have as many, unless you go somewhere like Dotonbori or Shinsaibashi also has a lot of tourists. And that's not to say that there are no foreign people in Osaka. There's plenty of foreign people that live here, but tourist-wise, I think there are less. And within the foreign community in Osaka, I think there are more permanent foreigners that I've met, at least. And my coworkers now, I think most of us are going to be in Japan long term. And I was also a bit surprised that most of the females that I work with have Japanese partners as well. So, you know, usually it's like foreign men with Japanese women, and it's not quite as common for foreign women to be with Japanese men, but most of the girls that I work with have a Japanese partner, which is awesome, because if I'm gonna be here long term, then I want other like females that are also here long term, and we can relate on the fact that our partners are Japanese. And of course, if we all have kids around the same time, then yeah, that's like a nice community to have. The coworkers that I had in Tokyo, and friends, most of them, or a lot of them, had partners from their own country or another Western or Southeast Asian country. Yeah, and a lot of the foreign friends and coworkers I had in Tokyo seemed like they're just there temporarily, maybe for 1 year, a few years, and like their intention is to go back to their home country or eventually, or work in another country. So the next thing would be the trains at rush hour. I don't think anything can compare to rush hour in Tokyo. When I was working in Tokyo, I would take the Yamanote line, and that line was so packed all the time and always delayed. And I know other lines like the Odakyu line or the Tozai line are also notoriously bad. And even in rush hour, no train experience I've had in Osaka has been as quite as packed as it gets in Tokyo. And I have found though that people bump into you more like getting off the train or the bus in Osaka. And when I was in Tokyo, I noticed that people were like trying to avoid me more. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's due to coronavirus too, but I feel like people bump into me a lot more in Osaka than they do in Tokyo. There are more train delays in Tokyo too. When I was working in Omotesando, almost at least once a week I would have to get a delay certificate from the station just to prove why I was late to work, and I haven't really experienced so many delays in Osaka. The next one is about recycling. I've found that recycling is not quite as strict in Osaka as it is in Tokyo. When I was living in the Nakano ward in Tokyo, I would have to separate everything very, very specifically. Like a milk carton is different from other types of paper, and different types of like plastic wrapping, plastic containers, pet bottles, like everything was all separate. But now a lot of things can just go in the regular trash. And since I've been in Osaka, I've been much more pessimistic about recycling in Japan, because I think they just burn everything anyway, so what is the point of painstakingly washing and separating all of your recyclables if they just burn it? Am I wrong? As somebody who is a morning person, the next one is very important to me. So the sun rises earlier in Tokyo, which is interesting. It's not a huge difference, but it's just something that I have noticed. And the last one is probably obvious as well, but Tokyo is much more fashionable than Osaka. If you go to Umeda, that's kind of like Shibuya, Harajuku, there are like cute and fashionable people there, but when I was in Tokyo, I just like looked at myself and I was like, oh my god, I'm so dasai. What am I doing here? yeah, I thought Osaka was fashionable, but then going back to Tokyo and being in the Harajuku area, I was like, damn, I'm not cool anymore. So in conclusion, you may also be wondering which city I like better, and that goes to Osaka. Yeah, I really like the Kansai dialect, and just the fact that it's easier to make friends and get to know people makes a huge difference. And it's also nice to be in Japan and able to share my experiences about a place that not as many people live, because so many foreigners live in Tokyo and so many people on YouTube are sharing experiences about Tokyo. So I also like the fact that I can explore and share a place that's slightly less known. So yeah, I really like living here. I was nervous about it before I came here, but yeah, I'm glad that it happened. And yeah, if you guys noticed anything else that's different between Osaka and Tokyo and you want to tell me about it in a comment below, then do so and we can talk about it. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. And I actually got a camera too, so yay, look forward to that. Bye guys.